I guess that's my cue. Shabbat Shalom, everybody. I'm happy to be here. Hopefully you guys are happy to be here too. Hold on. Let me get kind of centered here on the screen. All right. St. George and the Millennial Kingdom. And of course, we will be talking tonight we will be asking the question, is Elijah and Phinehas the same individual? And also, is Al-Khadir the same individual as Elijah? And while we're at it, is Al-Khadir, is he also St. George? St. George in the Millennial Kingdom. So now this is one of those weeks where, I have questions, and sometimes I look at things, and I'm going to be accumulating a lot of different documents tonight. That's something that I enjoy doing, looking at a lot of rarely read texts. In fact, I'm going to be reading as a conclusion tonight a text which probably nobody watching this video has ever heard from before. At the end of the day, though, I can't tell you. I am pretty convinced that that Elijah and Phinehas are the same individual. But when it comes to St. George and so on and so forth, I can only show you what I'm looking at, and I'm going to let you come to those conclusions. Now, before we get into this tonight, what are we looking at here? Oh, Discovering the Paleo-Hebrew, Matthew, a preview, chapters 1 through 6. So the unexpected cosmology has been growing so much larger than anything that I myself can do. And as many of you know, Pamela is working with us to translate the Bible through the Paleo-Hebrew. And she's working on several books right now, including Joshua and Revelation. And she's completed the Torah. She did Genesis through Deuteronomy. She is getting close to finishing Psalms. And she did Song of Songs as well. Right now she's doing Matthew. So she has, for all you Patreon subscribers out there, thank you for supporting this ministry, supporting my work, supporting her work, supporting Rebecca's work as well. You can get a free preview of chapters 1 through 6, the beginning of chapter 6. So the first 5 chapters of Matthew. It is available. Go check it out on Patreon. You can get the link there, or you can unlock the page on the Unexpected Cosmology. Speaking of which, my life work, the book I started in November of 2000, so almost a quarter of a century ago. Yes, I'm that old. I'm finally getting around to completing it, and this is my life's work. I'm taking everything that I have accumulated pretty much on this journey, on this quest for truth, into a narrative, and I have been plugging away at this for the last, 2-3 months, completing a course. I have thousands of pages of just written dialogue and notes, and I'm trying to put all this together. And anyways, for those of you Patreon subscribers, go check it out. The first 27 pages of the book is available for you to read. You can go see where this is going, and you can see my writing style and what it's going to look like, get a better understanding of it. So thank you, everyone, for that. And one last thing, support Tuck's mission and the Paleo-Hebrew translation. I am doing a fundraiser. I'm asking on everybody to prayerfully consider supporting what we're doing here at the Unexpected Cosmology. If this house folds, then Rebecca goes and Pamela goes in her translations and that kind of stuff. And we want to keep this going for a long time. So we're 25% where we would like to be with this fundraiser. So that's enough of that tonight. And there should be links under this channel to go to. This is GoFundMe right here to help us out with that. All right, St. George and the Millennial Kingdom. Let's get right into this. Now, you can see the contents here. I have a lot to cover tonight. Well, I don't know how long I'm going to be here. I'm dedicated to this. I'm devoted to the end. Hopefully you are too. And if you don't know, we've been going through line for line in Genesis, and I'm about 4 or 5 weeks into it. And we haven't even got to the second day of creation yet, which is, of course, the creation of the firmament, or the rakia. And I decided to do something a little bit different this week. I am jumping ahead. I am springboarding off of chapter 5. It says Paleo Bereshith 2 here. I don't know why I put that. It should be chapter 5. Maybe I'm like dyslexic or something. I don't really know. And the reason I say this is all fair is because I was going through the Torah portions last year, and it was a wild ride. I mean, a fast-moving current to get through the entire Torah in 1 year. And I decided to jump off the train at the Genesis 1 station. Now, for those of you familiar with the Torah portions, in the first week, it's murder, it's suicide. You have to get through Genesis 1, chapter 1 through 6 in the first week. And it's insanity. So this is going to take me months to get through Genesis 1 through 6. And by the time I get through the book of Genesis, or even halfway through Genesis, the Torah portions might roll back around again. I might jump on that train again. We'll see. But anyways, what I want to springboard off of is this passage right here, Enoch. And Enoch lived until the age of 65 years when Methuselah, was born to him, and Enoch walked with Elohim. Now, if you're new here, Elohim is the Paleo-Hebrew for God. The modern Hebrew, the Masoretic script, would be known as Elohim. Everyone has heard that a lot, El or Elohim. But the Paleo would be Elohim. And that's where, in the Quran, they get Allah from, no doubt. And Methuselah had been born to him 300 years, and sons and daughters were born to him. And the whole lifetime of Enoch was 365 years. Imagine that, 365. And Enoch walked with Elohim, and he did not die, Elohim having taken him to himself. By the way, I am reading from the second edition of Paleo Bereshith. That would be Genesis, of course. And this is Paleo Pamela's second edition, which we just released today. I have not formally announced it, but it is available. And I'm going to have a preview of it for all the Patreon subscribers out there probably this next week. You can go look at some of the changes that she has made. Thank you for supporting that. So let's just start out talking about Enoch. And we're going to get into Elijah and Phinehas here real soon. But I wanted to just look at the 365 years of Enoch and the interesting number of 366. Apparently he wrote 366 books. Why is it one off from the 365? I'm not prepared to answer that for you right now. Maybe someone out there has a thought on it. You be sure to throw that into the comment section. We read this in 2nd Enoch. There was a wise man, a great artificer, and Yahweh conceived love for him and received him, that he should behold the uppermost dwellings and be an eyewitness of the wise and great and inconceivable and immutable realm of El Elyon, of the very wonderful and glorious and bright and many-eyed station of Yahweh's servants, and of the inaccessible throne of Yahweh, and of the degrees and manifestations of the incorporeal host, and of the ineffable ministration of the multitude of the elements, and the various apparition and inexpressible singing of the host of cherubim and of the boundless light. At that time, he said, when my 165th year was completed, I begat my son Methuselah. We just read that in Genesis. And this too, I lived 200 and completed all the years of my life, 365 years. That's just, added confirmation there from the book of 2nd Enoch. Again, reading from 2nd Enoch, we see that according to the number of the days, 365 and a quarter. Actually, let me read this from scratch. And again, those men led me away to the western parts and showed me 6 great gates open, corresponding to the eastern gates, opposite to where the sun sets, according to the number of the days, 365. And of course, so we see here that the years of his life corresponds to the solar calendar. But then we see in 2nd Enoch 23, it says that he wrote 366 books. Again, why is it one additional day? Curious if any of you have any thoughts out there on that. All right, but let's break into this. Phinehas the zealous. And I'm going to be asking the question tonight, is Phinehas Eliyahu? Is he Elijah? And we talked about the spirit of Elijah a lot. Now, who was Phinehas? Phinehas was the son of Eleazar. This is what it says in 1 Chronicles 9. And Shalom, the sons of Korah, the son of Ebiasaph, the sons of Korah, and his brother, and of the house of his father, the Korahites, were over the work of the service, keeper of the gates of the tabernacle, and their fathers, being over the host of Yahweh, were keepers of the entry. And Phinehas, the son of Eleazar, was a ruler over them in time past, and Yahweh was with him. 1 Chronicles chapter 9. So I could take you through a chart and show you that while Israel was in the wilderness, they were divided by their tribes, and there were the tribes kind of on the outside, and the closer you got to the tabernacle, on the very inside, it was the Levites. The Levites were instructed to be the zealous guardians of the mysteries of heaven, the righteousness, the tabernacle itself, and the Torah. And of course, Phinehas was the chief of the rulers, the Levites of this time, the true guardian. This is what it says. This is the scene where Phinehas takes a starring role, and I'll be reading to you from the Aramaic Targum. And of course, this is in Numbers chapter 25. This is what it says. And Yasharel dwelt in the place which is called Shittim on account of the Shittutha, foolishness and depravity which were among them. And the people began to profane their holiness and to strip their bodies to the image of Peor and commit fornication with the daughters of the Moabites, and brought out the image of Peor concealed under their bundles. Now, if you're confused about the context here, this has to do with Balaam. Balaam was a prophet who was sent in to curse Israel. He was not able to curse Israel, and he could only bless Israel, which really angered the king who sent him in, and the Moabites, and they were like, we sent you in here as a prophet. I mean, Balaam, if you read the book of Jasher, he goes all the way back to Pharaoh in Egypt, and he was basically the duality to Moses, the checkerboard of duality. He was the darkness to Moses's light, and he couldn't curse them, but he could entice them to sin. He could bring in these hot babes who concealed idols in their bodies, and then they started stripping down in front of the guys, and they started fornicating right there on the site of the temple. Now, keep in mind, these women come all the way into the camp, and they make it all the way up to the center, this camp is for miles. It goes on for miles and miles on all sides, and they're able to get all the way up to the temple to pollute it. And they invited the people to the sacrifices of their idols, and the people ate in their feast and bowed themselves to their idols. And the people of the house of Yasharel joined themselves to Baalah Peor, like the nail in the wood, which is not separated, but by breaking up the wood or with the splinters. And the anger of Yahweh was kindled against Yasharel. So let's just skip down here. So Moshe's like, you guys, he goes to the Levites. He's like, you got to do something about this. And Phinehas bar Eleazar bar Aaron, so he's the grandson of Aaron, the priest, saw, and remembering the ordination, answered and said, he who ought to kill, let him kill. Where are the lions of the tribe of Yehudah? When they saw, they were quiet. So he's looking to Judah. He's like, you guys, it's come all the way to me. Where are you guys here? You're supposed to be putting a stop to this. And they're like, yeah, they're not interested. And he arose from among his Sanhedrin and took a lance in his hand. Now, I shouldn't put that in red there. I want you to think tonight about this lance, this image of the lance in Phinehas's hand. I want to see if there's any similarities when we get all the way up to the Middle Ages. I just gave it away for you guys. 12 miracles were wrought for Phinehas at the time that he went in after the man of Yasharel with the Midianite woman. So this lance he takes. There's a man and a woman having, they're fornicating, they're having intercourse right there at the tabernacle. And he's just, he takes this lance and he just spears both of them right there on the spot. Now, the first sign was he would have parted them, but could not. So he takes this lance through them, and they're like now stuck to this lance. Their mouth was closed, and they could not cry out. For had they cried out, they would have been rescued. He drave the lance through both of them. The lance remained fixed in the wound. When he bare them aloft, the lintel was uplifted for him until he had gone forth. He carried them through the whole camp, 6 miles without fatigue. I told you that this camp went on for miles and miles. So he's walking for 6 miles, carrying these 2 people on the slants. Now, this is according to the Aramaic Targum that I'm reading you. He held them up by his right arm in sight of their kindred, who had no power to hurt him. The lance was made strong so as not to be broken with the load. The iron transpierced them, but was not withdrawn. An angel came and made bare their corpses in sight of the people. They lingered alive till they had been carried through the entire camp, lest the priest in the tabernacle should be defiled by the dead. Their blood thickened so as not to flow upon them. But when he had borne them through the camp, it brake forth and they died. Answering, he said before Yahweh of the world, can it be that on account of these 24,000 of Yasharel shall die? Immediately the compassions of heaven were moved, and the plague was stayed from the children of Yasharel. That comes again from the Jonathan Targum of Numbers chapter 25. So Phinehas the zealous. Is zealousness bad? No, you cannot be overzealous. Like zealousness is good. Zealousness for the righteousness, for the Torah, for the laws of Yahweh. It says in Numbers 25:11 here, Phinehas, the son of Eleazar, the son of Aaron the priest, hath turned my wrath away from the children of Yasharel, while he was zealous for my sake among them. So being zealous for the sake of Yahweh is what it's all about. And of course, Yeshua HaMashiach, Yeshua, if you prefer, Jesus Christos, if you're a Greek fanboy, he had the zeal of Phinehas. So let's see what it says right here. At the Yahudim's Passover, as it was at hand, and Yahushua went up to Jerusalem and found in the temple those that sold oxen and sheep and doves, the changers of money sitting. And when he had made a scourge of small cords, he drove them all out of the temple, and the sheep and the oxen, and poured out the changers' money and overthrew the table. So we see, he's not taking a lance and spearing, a couple having sex there at the temple, but it's the same sort of zealousness that Phinehas had, that this was the house of worship. This was the holy place that was being made a ridicule of. And he said unto them that sold doves, take these things hence, make not my father's house a house of merchandise. And the Talmudim, those would be the disciples, remember that it was written, the zeal of thine house hath eaten me up. So that right there is referring to him as zealous. Then answered the Yahudim and said unto him, what sign showest thou unto us, seeing that thou doest these things? And he says, Yahushua answered and said unto them, destroy this temple, and in 3 days I will raise it up. Then said the Yahudim, 46 years was this temple in building, and wilt thou rear it up in 3 days? But he spake, of course, of the temple of the body. Of course, you guys know that. That comes from John chapter 2, the Gospel of Yochanan. So here's the thing, though, about zeal. All right. Zeal has to be coupled with knowledge. And I feel like I have to focus on this point before I get into the good stuff with Phinehas and Elijah and St. George, so you understand this. And this is what it says in Romans chapter 10. Brother, my heart's desire and prayer to Elohim, or to Elohim, for Yasharel is that they might be saved. For I bear them record that they have a zeal of Elohim, but not according to knowledge. For they, being ignorant of Elohim's righteousness, and going about to establish their own righteousness, have not submitted themselves unto the righteousness of Elohim. No, another way you could phrase this is that what it talks about in Deuteronomy are those who choose their own blessing, right? So you can choose the blessing or the curse, and Yah will either deliver us to the curse or the blessing. But many people will choose the curse and claim it to be their own blessing. That is how you bless yourself. You choose the curse. And that's what many of the Yahudim were doing. They were very zealous. The Pharisees, no doubt, super zealous, but it wasn't according to knowledge. They were actually forsaking the Torah. They had done away with the Torah. I mean, really, according to rabbinical Judaism today, which is an offshoot of the Pharisee denomination. I mean, you could look this up on Wikipedia. It'll tell you in the opening paragraph that rabbinical Judaism is the religion of the Pharisees, that there is no Torah apart from the Talmud. They have done away with it for the traditions of men. So just remember that doing away with the Torah is never a good thing for any religion, any denomination. That's Romans chapter 10. It says, for, of course, Moshe describes the righteousness, which is of the Torah, that the man which doeth these things shall live by them. That's Romans chapter 10. The man of righteousness shall live according to Moshe. Lack of knowledge leads to destruction. This comes from Hosea 4:6. My people are destroyed for lack of knowledge. And of course, I love this verse. And when I advocate the Torah as eternally true, and that Yah's character is unchanging, that he's not going to be bipolar, he's not going to tell us to be obedient one moment and then to be disobedient the next. I've had this verse thrown at me so many times. People will be like, oh, another one bites the dust. He's destroyed for lack of knowledge. If he truly understood, Paulianity, he would know that you're not supposed to be obedient to the Bible anymore. And they quote this passage, but you got to keep reading. It says, because you have rejected the knowledge, I will also reject you. So what is the knowledge that these people in Old Testament times, mind you, not New Testament times, in Old Testament times, what are they rejecting? That you shall be no priest to me. Now we're supposed to be a kingdom of priests, right? Seeing you have forgotten the Torah of your Elohim, I will also forget your children. So, ouch, there it is. Old Testament times, by the way. This comes from Hebrews chapter 10. For if we sin willfully after we have received the knowledge of the truth, there remains no more sacrifice for sins, but a certain fearful looking for of judgment and fiery indignation, which shall devour the adversaries. He that despised Moses' Torah died without mercy under 2 or 3 witnesses. Of how much sorer punishment, suppose ye, shall he be thought worthy, who hath trodden under the foot the Son of Elohim, and hath counted the blood of the covenant wherewith he was sanctified an unholy thing, and hath done despite unto the Spirit of grace. That comes from Hebrews chapter 10. Of course, we know that sin is a transgression of the Torah. This is New Testament, the definition of sin. In 1 John it said, whosoever committeth sin transgresseth also the Torah, for sin is a transgression of the Torah. Now, why am I talking about this? Because we're talking tonight about Elijah, Phinehas, Enoch, Eliyahu, and a few other individuals. And what good is that talking about them if we don't talk about their personality, what they believed, and who they were? They were zealous individuals. But the case I have just been trying to make to you is, what good is zealousness if you have a lack of knowledge? A lack of knowledge leads to destruction. So we need to have a knowledge of what sin is and what righteousness is. And we want to have a zealousness to obey, to be righteous, to obey the Torah, and to not sin. For those of you coming at me with the I get this all the time. Well, it's too hard not to sin. It's too hard. So why try? It's like, seriously, like, is that the standard we want in life? We just put the bar so low, like we're just not going to try. It's just too hard. It's murdering people. It's just so hard to, just murder my babies, abortion, all this. It's too hard. So let's just keep killing the babies, right? I mean, that's ultimately what people are justifying here. And of course, one more thing that's really important in this, because Phinehas and Elijah would all be all about this, the Sabbath. This comes from Hebrews chapter 9. For inasmuch as on this day Messiah rested, Yeshua, Jesus Christos, he rested on a certain day of the week that we call Sabbath, he would not have spoken of a different day. There's no other day but the Sabbath. There remains then, because Yeshua rested on the very specific day, there remains then a Sabbath rest for the people of God, of Elohim. For anyone who enters Elohim's rest also rests from their works, just as Elohim did from his. So they're telling you that the same day that Yeshua rested was the same day that Elohim rested in the creation week. They're telling you that the model is not just for the Jews, it's for all humanity. And it goes back all the way to creation. It's something the Messiah did before he ever came to earth. He rested every 7 days, and he continues to. Let us, therefore, make every effort to enter that rest, not just some other rest, not some Wednesday at lunch hour we spend 20 minutes resting in prayer, and just as Jesus is our Sabbath rest, right? And it's like, no, let us therefore make every effort to enter that rest, so that no one will perish by following their example of disobedience. So it tells you right here that if you were not keeping the Sabbath, the very Sabbath that Messiah kept, the very Sabbath that Elohim rested on during the creation week, then it is disobedience. And we have many examples of disobedience, but we will perish for that disobedience, for that lack of knowledge, if we do not make every effort to enter that rest. Peter says this in 2 Peter chapter 3, and accounts that the long suffering of our Adonai is salvation. Or you could say is Yeshua. Yeshua is our salvation. Even as our beloved brother Paul also, according to the wisdom given unto him, has written unto you, and also in all his epistles, speaking in them of these things, in which are some things hard to be understood, which they that are unlearned and unstable will wrest. They will twist it, right? They will cherry pick, as they do also the other scriptures, unto their own destruction. All right. So what Peter is warning here is he's saying there's a certain segment of the population that they're already in my lifetime, in Peter's lifetime, they are taking his letters and they're saying, we're going to twist this to our desires. And he says that they're doing the same thing to the actual scripture of Moshe. They're taking it and they're twisting it to their destruction. They're actually creating a lack of knowledge. So let's all beware of that in our zealousness. Let's keep zealous and knowledgeable, everyone. Are Phinehas and Eliyahu the same? Let's compare them. So one thing, this is from Biblical Antiquities of Pseudo-Philo. And this is what we read. At that time, Phinehas was verging toward death, and Yahweh said to him, behold, you have passed the 120 years that have been established for every man. Now, I'm going to be showing you that he actually lived a very, very long life. Now rise up and go from here and dwell in the desert on the mountain and dwell there many years. I will command my eagle, and he will nourish you there, and you will not come down again to mankind until the appointed time arrives, and you will be tested at the appropriate time. And then he will shut up the heaven from rain, and by your mouth it will be opened up. Afterward, you will be raised up to the place where those who were before you were raised up, and you will be there until I remember the world. Then I will bring you, and you will get a taste of death. So what it's saying here, according to Pseudo-Philo, is that Phinehas would return again someday. So if this is true, now you can take this with a grain of salt, but I'm going to be showing you a lot of different moving pieces here and showing you how they do add up. They do stack up. That I don't think this is all just, it's too much, okay. When did he return? When did Phinehas return? Because I haven't seen him in any recorded biblical history, but I do see Elijah showing up. Elijah or Eliyahu, he shuts up heaven from rain and is fed by ravens. So we see some comparisons here because Phinehas is promised to shut up the heavens from rain. He's fed by eagles instead of ravens. And he goes up to this mountain to hang out. And it says, Eliyahu the Tishbite, who was of the inhabitants of Gilead, said unto Ahab, as Yahweh Elohim of Yashruel liveth, before whom I stand, there shall not be dew nor rain these years, but according to my word. And the word of Yahweh came unto him, saying, get thee hence, and turn thee eastward, and hide thyself by the brook Herith, that is before the Yarden, or the Yarden River. And it shall be that thou shalt drink of the brook, and I have commanded the ravens to feed thee there. So he went and did according unto the word of Yahweh, for he went and dwelt by the brook Herith, that is before Yarden. And the ravens brought him bread and flesh in the morning, and bread and flesh in the evening, and he drank of the brook. And it came to pass after a while that the brook dried up, because there had been no rain in the land. And the word of Yahweh came unto him, saying, arise, get thee to Zarephath, which belongs to Zidon, and dwell there. Behold, I have commanded a widow woman there to sustain thee. So he arose and went to this place, Zarephath. And when he came to the gates of the city, behold, the widow woman was there gathering of sticks. And he called to her and said, fetch me, I pray thee, a little water in a vessel, that I may drink. And as she was going to fetch it, he called to her and said, bring me, I pray thee, a morsel of bread in thine hand. And she said, as Yahweh thy Elohim liveth, I have not a cake, but a handful of meal in a barrel, and a little oil in a cruse. And behold, I am gathering 2 sticks, that I may go in and dress it for me and my son, that we may eat and die. And Eliyahu said unto her, fear not, go and do as thou hast said, but make me thereof a little cake first, and bring it unto me, and after make for thee and for thy son. For thus saith Yahuwah Allahayam of Yasharel, the barrel of meal shall not waste, neither shall the cruse of oil fail, until the day that Yahuwah sendeth rain upon the earth. And she went and did according to the saying of Eliyahu, and she and he and her house did eat many days. And the barrel of meal wasted not, neither did the cruse of oil fail, according to the word of Yahuwah, which he spake by Eliyahu. Now, just a side note here, when you get into the traditions of the rabbinical literature, they for lack of time, I wasn't going to go through all this, but they actually say that that Yahuwah kept this promise where he withheld the rain for the sake of Eliyahu's righteousness. That he went to King Ahab and said, "Oh, he kind of just said it. He jumped the gun. He's like, you know what? It's not going to rain. I'm telling you now, it's not going to rain for so many years." And Yahuwah is like, "Okay, fine. You said it. Now I'm going to keep. I'm going to keep it. Just not put you to shame." Just throw that perspective out there, because a lot of people, they think that maybe Eliyahu said it specifically because he had heard that from Yahuwah. I'll let you decide on that. So Phinehas was zealous as well. Numbers 25:11. We already read this. He was zealous for my sake among them. But Eliyahu was also zealous. And it says, and he said, I have been moved by zeal for Yahuwah Allahayam of hosts. For the children of Yasharel have forsaken thy covenant, thrown down thine altars, and slain thy prophets with the sword. And I, even I only, am left, and they seek my life to take it away. So here we are seeing a lot of comparisons between the two. Now, both of them lived very long lives, some of which you've already seen with Phinehas. Phinehas was still alive in Joshua chapter 22. This is what it says. And when they came into the borders of Jordan, they're in the lands of Canaan, the children of Reuben and the children of Gad and the half tribe of Manasseh built there an altar by Jordan, a great altar to see to. And the children of Yasharel heard say, behold, the children of Reuben and the children of Gad and the half tribe of Manasseh have built an altar over against the land of Canaan in the borders of Jordan at the passage of the children of Yasharel. And when the children of Yasharel heard of it, the whole congregation of the children of Yasharel gathered themselves together at Shiloh to go up to war against them. And the children of Yasharel sent unto the children of Reuben, and to the children of Gad, and to the half tribe of Manasseh, and to the land of Gilead, Phinehas, the son of Eleazar the priest. There he is. The son of Eleazar, that would make him the grandson of Aaron. And with him 10 princes of each chief house, a prince, throughout all the tribes of Yasharel. And each one was a head of the house of their fathers among the thousands of Yasharel. Jumping down to verse 17 here. Is the iniquity of Peor too little for us, from which we are not cleansed until this day, although there was a plague in the congregation of Yahuwah? All right. Well, I'm not sure why I highlighted that there. I'm going to be skipping. You can see this is a big passage here. Skipping this for lack of time, because I have a lot to get to tonight. And when Phinehas the priest and the princes of the congregation, the heads of the thousands of Yasharel which were with him, heard the words that the children of Reuben and the children of Gad and the children of Manasseh spake, it pleased them. And Phinehas the son of Eleazar the priest, of course, would be the son of Aaron, said unto the children of Reuben and to the children of Gad and to the children of Manasseh, this day we perceive that Yahuwah is among us, because ye have not committed this trespass against Yahuwah. Now ye have delivered the children of Yasharel out of the hand of Yahuwah. And Phinehas, the son of Eleazar the priest, and the princes returned from the children of Reuben and from the children of Gad out of the land of Gilead and to the land of Canaan, to the children of Yasharel, and brought them word again. All right. Now, I just want to show you this chronology here of Joshua and Judges. And well, let's see here. It's been a while. I need to look at this again. You guys can take a minute and look at this, but he lived a long time. Like, people are kind of looking at this and going, he appeared to live way longer than he should have. And he's actually still alive at the end of Judges. That's the odd part. So the Judges goes, I mean, how many years, hundreds of years are we dealing with here? Samuel is about the year 1050, and it looks like Moshe is like 400 years before that. So Phinehas was a contemporary of Moshe, of course, a grandson of Aaron, but he's still alive all the way over here in Judges chapter 20. And it says, and Phinehas, the son of Eleazar, there he is again, just showing up in the Bible, just random page. He just walks into the story. And Phinehas, the son of Eleazar, the son of Aaron, so just letting you know that it's not another Eleazar, stood before it in those days, saying, shall I yet again go out to battle against the children of Benjamin, my brother, or shall I cease? Now, this battle, when they go up against Benjamin, is, again, it's like at the end of the story of Judges. It's at the very, very end. What happens afterwards is 1 Samuel. And of course, when we get into 1 Samuel, then we get into King David. So he was still on the earth in those days. How old was this guy? So this is what Rabbi Levi ben Gershon, he's a official timeline. He's a medieval rabbi. We asked the question, are Phinehas and Eliyahu the same? This is what he says. Since we see this amazing longevity for Elijah, and we see the same for Phinehas, as we discussed earlier, and we find both of them were lifted by the Ruach of Allahayam, as if they were, or I should say the Ruach of God, as if they were angels of Allahayam, and we find a covenant of life for Phinehas. As we discussed earlier, it is fitting to suggest that Phinehas is Eliyahu, since one peculiar postulate, an immortal person, is better than two peculiar postulates or two immoral people. So people have been, I show you that because people have been asking this question for a very, very long time. According to the official timeline, we see at least 1,000 years of people trying to put this together. So obviously I'm not the first to do that by any stretch. The conclusion of Legends of the Jews, volume 4, says this. In those days, Allahayam spoke to Phinehas. Thou art 120 years old. Thou hast reached the natural term of man's life. Go now, betake thyself to the mountain Danabin, and remain there many years. I will command the eagles to sustain thee with food, so that thou returnest not to men until the time when thou lockest fast the clouds and openest them again. So right there in Legends of the Jews is telling you that the man who's coming back to make sure that it doesn't rain is the same guy. It's Phinehas. Then I will carry thee to the place where thou art who were before thee, and there thou wilt tarry until I visit the world and bring thee thither to taste of death. Well, let's then talk about this, the return of Phinehas / Eliyahu, because it's kind of interesting, right? So Phinehas doesn't die. He goes to some mountain or somewhere where he hides from the world. He makes up an appearance again as Elijah, Eliyahu. And, you know, isn't it interesting how we don't have the, say, the nativity story of Elijah / Eliyahu? Let's look at his return again. This is in Questions of Bartholomew, chapter 1, which I think Questions of Bartholomew was originally the retooled Gospel of Bartholomew. And Beliar said into Sheol. So Sheol here is a living entity. He's actually the prince of Sheol. And Beliar, of course, you know, as Azazel or Satanael. Beliar said into Sheol, look carefully who it is that, for it is Eliyahu or Enoch, or one of the prophets that this man seems me to be. So the context here is that Satan, Hasatan, has personally brought down Yeshua from death into Sheol. And of course, it's a Trojan horse situation. Yeshua is getting ready to break down the gates and set all the captives free. And Satan is convinced. I've been over this before, and time and again, people are like, no, this isn't true. But I've shown this time and again that Satan actually did not know that he was the actual anointed one. He thought he was somebody else. He tested him. He tempted him in the wilderness, but he failed the test. And what I mean by that, by Satan's logic, Messiah failed the test. He told him to jump. He didn't jump. Satan concluded that he was afraid to die and that this couldn't possibly be the Messiah. But I digress. So he thinks it's Elijah or Enoch. And but Sheol answered death and said, not yet are 6,000 years accomplished. And whence are these, O Beliar? For the sum of the number is in mine hands. A quick point here. I think of all the things I have covered in my lifetime, at this present point, it seems like the one thing I've discussed and brought out that seems to stick to me more than anything else is what I call the 7,000 year timeline deception, and showing that that Messiah actually showed up in the year 5,500. And I would place 5,500 years after Adam. I would place this at his death, burial, and resurrection, 5,500 years, and that there were 500 more years to come before the initiation of the millennial kingdom, a physical manifestation of the millennial kingdom on the earth, which I have placed in the 500s. And I will say this word literally, like I literally mean this, that the world came to an end between 536 and 541. The world came to an end. It was over. Everybody died. End of the world. So this is one of the part of the context of the 7,000 year timeline deception. We're going to be looking at the return of Elijah as was promised at the 6,000 year mark. So right here, according to Questions of Bartholomew, it says Sheol's like, this can't be Eliyahu and Enoch. It cannot be them because there's still 500 more years to go before they're able to come. All right, so now we're looking at Exodus chapter 6:18. Of course, this is the Aramaic Targum, and it says, though you may be dispersed unto the ends of the heavens, from thence will the word of Yahweh gather you together by the hand of Eliyahu, the great priest, and from thence he will bring you by the hand of the king Mashiach. Now, I personally believe that, again, this is a reference to the 500s. I will be looking at the theory of John the Baptist being a fulfillment of this. But I personally, that's not my conclusion. If you do conclude that, that's totally fine by me. No, no sweat off my brow. But so there is the ushering in of the world to come, that Elijah is going to show up, and that will initiate what we call the second coming of Messiah. And the word of Yahweh your Elohim will bring you into the land which your fathers possessed by inheritance, and you shall possess it, and he will bless you and increase you more than your fathers. And Yahweh your Elohim will take away the foolishness of your heart and of your children's heart, for he will abolish evil desire from the world and create good desire, which will give you the dictate to love Yahweh your Elohim with all your heart and soul, that your lives may flow on forevermore. And the word of Yahweh your Elohim will send these curses upon your enemies who have oppressed you in your captivities, and such as have hated and persecuted to destroy you. But you shall return and be obedient to the word of Yahweh, and do all his commandments that I command you this day. So this is a promise of the end times. And by end times, I place this from when Mashiach came at his advent. That was the end times. But also the end times were leading into the millennial kingdom, into the 500s, and of course the 1,000 years that followed. And it says here is the promise that when Israel is regathered by the hand of Elijah, led back to Mashiach, that they will be obedient to the word of Yahweh, to the commandments that he has given this day. This is the Torah. That they will be obedient to the Torah. And of course, the reason why the millennial kingdom came to an end, I won't go through that discussion tonight, but I have plenty to show on that, is because of the rebellion against the Torah. Now, Exodus chapter 6 says this, and the sons of Kehath, Amram, and Yitzhar, and Hebron, and Uzziel, and the years of the life of Kehath, the saint, 133 years. He lived to see Phinehas. And it says here, who is Eliyahu, the great priest, who is to be sent to the captivity of Yasharel at the end of the days. So if there are any question in your mind, if you needed to see a direct correlation between Phinehas and Elijah, at least if the Targum is okay with you, there it is right there. It says according to the Aramaic Targum, Phinehas is Eliyahu, and that he would return at the end of days. Deuteronomy chapter 30, again, the Targum says this, though you may be dispersed into the ends of heaven. Oh, okay, did I repeat that? No, yeah, I did. Wow, I repeated that. Okay. Copy and paste for you. There you go. Lamentations 4:22. And after this, your iniquity will be finished, O congregation of Zion, and you will be freed by the hands of the King Mashiach and Eliyahu the high priest. Now, what are the iniquities? Well, the iniquity is a sin, guys. It's transgression of the Torah. This is one of the reasons I felt it was so important to bring that up again, that the only way it's defined in the New Testament is the transgression of the Torah. So it's interesting. You have a zealous guy. You have Phinehas, Eliyahu showing up to help in the iniquity, to lead them away from the curse to the blessing. They'll be freed by the hands of King Mashiach and Eliyahu the high priest, and Yahweh will no longer exile you. So why are they exiled? Because they were not keeping the Torah. So guys, are we in exile now? We are in the diaspora. We are not in the land. And why is that? And at that time, I will punish your iniquities. Wicked Rome, built in Italy and filled with crowds of Edomites. And the Persians will come and oppress you and destroy you because your sins have been made known before Yahweh. So the Edomite prophecy, by the way, I think was fulfilled by 70 AD. The Edomites had infiltrated Judah, and you see Herod, and the Edomites were in the priesthood, and they were the ones that killed Messiah. Why is that so important? Because Esau wanted to kill Yaakov. He wanted to reverse the Genesis 3 prophecy of the stepping on the heel, or biting the heel, but stepping on the head, crushing the head of the serpents. And they wanted to reverse engineer that. And they literally did put Messiah down. Now, according to this here, the Edomites were also in Rome. And these would be the children of darkness that were destroyed in the sons of light against the sons of darkness. All right. According to Gospel of Nicodemus, chapter 20, then Adonai, holding Adam by the hand. So remember now, he's been brought down. I showed you the questions of Bartholomew. This is the harrowing out of hell. He has been brought down by Satan. And now he is ripped open the gates, so basically the mouth of Leviathan. He has literally opened up, nobody else could do it. He's slaying Leviathan in this kind of context. Then Adonai holding Adam by the hand, because the promise was that the promise was not that he was coming for Adam's children so much as he was coming specifically for Adam. Adam was his special creation. Yahushua HaMashiach personally created Adam, and he's like, I'm coming down there and redeem you. So he's not holding everyone else's hand. He's concerned with Adam. He delivered him to Michael the archangel, and he led them into paradise filled with mercy and glory. And two very ancient men met them, very, very ancient, and were asked by the saints, the righteous, the set apart, who are ye, who have not yet been with us in Sheol, and have had your bodies placed in paradise? And one of them answered, he said, I am Enoch, who is translated by the word of Elohim, and the man who is with me is Eliyahu the Tishbite, who was translated in a fiery chariot. Here we have hitherto been and have not tasted death, but are not now about to return of the coming of Antichrist, being armed with divine signs and miracles to engage with him in battle, and to be slain by him at Jerusalem, and to be taken up alive again into the clouds after 3 days and a half. Now, is this talking here contextually about 70 AD? Because there were two prophets slain in Jerusalem, according to Revelation, and Josephus also mentions these two. I've commented that I actually think Yaakov, the brother of Yahusha, or James, James the Just, may have been one of the two witnesses that was killed, according to Josephus's own testimony. He fits the bill. I don't think they're talking about that here. I think that they are. We see things cyclically happen in prophecy. Again, the context here, this battle with the Antichrist, is in the 500s, because the Gospel of Nicodemus makes very, very clear that the millennial kingdom is not beginning for another 500 years at the time of this resurrection of Messiah and all the saints being taken up to. So when they're talking about that they are soon going to return, they're talking about that 500 years later. And the Prince of Sheol has already said it's not going to happen for another 500 years. And while the holy Enoch and Eliyahu were relating this, behold, there came another man. Okay, so this is the thief on the cross. I don't need to give all that to you. All right. So let's read here, Phinehas, Eliyahu, and the final battle. This comes to us from The Apocalypse of Eliyahu. This will be a few pages read, but if you have never heard this before, I find it incredibly fascinating. And again, I do not believe that. Now, the Apocalypse of Elijah was a first century text, and it was written in Hebrew, just like the Gospel of Nicodemus. And some scholars believe that this actually predates Paul, and that Paul may have actually been referring to this document. So let's read what this says. The virgin, whose name is Tabitha, will hear that the shameless one has revealed himself in the holy places. And she will put on her garment of fine linen, and she will pursue him up to Yehuda, scolding him up to Jerusalem, saying, O shameless one, O son of lawlessness, O you who have been hostile to all the saints. Of course, what is lawlessness? It's without Torah. And of course, the qualification of being a saint is Revelation 14:12. That is the theme of my ministry. The patience of the saints are the set apart are those who keep the Father's commandments and the testimony of Messiah. Then the shameless one will be angry at the virgin. He will pursue her up to the regions of the sunset. He will suck her blood in the evening. What is that? Vampirism? I don't even know. That's an interesting line there. And he will cast her upon the temple, and she will become a healing for the people. She will rise up at dawn, and she will live and scold him, saying, so this is a third resurrection that happens here, because we know about the two prophets, Enoch and Elijah, but she, apparently this Tabitha woman is a prophetess, and she too rises from the dead after having her blood sucked out by a vampire. She will rise up at dawn, and she will live and scold him, the lawless one, saying, O shameless one, you have no power against my soul or my body, because I live in Yahweh always. And also my blood, which you have cast upon the temple, has become a healing for the people. Then when Eliyahu and Enoch hear that the shameless one has revealed himself in the holy place, they will come down and fight with him, saying, are you indeed not ashamed when you attach yourself to the saints, because you are always estranged? You have been hostile to those who belong to heaven. You have acted against those belonging to the earth. You have been hostile to the thrones. You have acted against the angels. You are always a stranger. You have fallen from heaven like the morning stars. You were changed, and your tribe became dark for you. But you are not ashamed when you stand firmly against Elohim. You are a devil. The shameless one will hear, and he will be angry, and he will fight with them in the marketplace of the great city. It seems like just that the shameless one, I could be reading longer portions from this text. This is, of course, the dragon, right? This is the dragon of old. This is Hasatan here, who is embodying this lawless one. So he will fight with them in the marketplace of the great city, and he will spend 7 days fighting with them. That seems pretty epic. And they will spend 3.5 days in the marketplace dead, while all the people see them. But on the 4th day, they will rise up, and they will scold him, saying, O shameless one, O son of lawlessness, are you indeed not ashamed of yourself, since you are leading astray the people of Elohim, for whom you did not suffer? Do you not know that we live in Yahweh? As the words were spoken, they prevailed over him, saying, furthermore, we will lay down before the flesh for the Ruach, and we will kill you, since you are unable to speak on that day, because we are always strong in Yahweh, but you are always hostile to Elohim, or to Elohim. The shameless one will hear, and he will be angry and fight them, and the whole city will surround them. On that day, they will shout up to heaven as they shine, while all the people and all the world see them. The son of lawlessness will not prevail over them. He will be angry at the land, and he will seek to sin against the people. He will pursue all of the saints. They and the priests of the Lamb will be brought back bound. He will kill them and destroy them, and their eyes will be removed with iron spikes. Oh, that's lovely. He will remove their skin from their heads. He will remove their nails one by one. He will command the vinegar and lime be put in their nose. Now those who are unable to bear up under the tortures of that king will take gold and flee over the fords to the desert places. They will lie down as one who sleeps. Yahweh will receive their spirits and their souls to himself. Their flesh will petrify. No wild animals will eat them until the last day of the great judgment. And they will rise up and find a place of rest, but they will not be in the kingdom of Hamashiach as those who have endured, because Adonai said, I will grant to them that they sit on my right hand. Isn't that interesting? So the ones who, and that's one of course, the qualifications of the 144,000. And it seems like there were these groups of people throughout history who were martyred, and they will receive this great glory in the kingdom. But those who couldn't handle it, they're like, okay, well, you're not going to like lose your salvation, but you're not going to get the reward. You didn't really choose the blessing in this case. They will receive favor over others, and they will triumph over the sons of lawlessness, and they will witness the dissolution of heaven and earth. They will receive the thrones of glory and the crowns. The 60 righteous ones who are prepared for this hour will hear, and they will gird on the breastplate of Yahuwah, and they will run to Jerusalem and fight with the shameless one, saying, all powers which the prophets have done from the beginning you have done, but you were unable to raise the dead because you have no power to give life. Therein we have known that you are the son of lawlessness. I think it's the first chapter, it talks about the characteristics of this Antichrist and how he can, shape shift, and I think he can appear as an old man or a child or all these different things. But the one thing he cannot do is raise the dead. He has many, many, many powers to, I think, even stop the sun if he wants to, but he cannot raise the dead. He will hear and he will be angry and command to kindle altars, and the righteous ones will be bound. They will be lifted up and burned. And on that day, the heart of many will harden, and they will flee from him, saying, this is not Hamashiach. Hamashiach does not kill the righteous. He does not pursue men so that he might seek them, but he persuades them with signs and wonders. On that day, Hamashiach will pity those who are his own, and he will send from heaven his 64,000 angels, each of whom has 6 wings. The sound will move heaven and earth when they give praise and glory. Now those upon whose forehead the name of Messiah is written, and upon whose hand is a seal, both the small and the great, will be taken up upon their wings and lifted up before his wrath. So there you go, right there. For there is a reference. You can't say that the idea of the rapture is just Jesuit last few hundred years. This is a very ancient text, and Second Ezra says something similar. I am not here to talk to you about rapture theory, pro or against. Just throwing that bone out there to those of you who think it is a possible. I don't have a problem with it. I am not, I'm not a rapture guy, but I do see incidences where the righteous are taken away. That happened to Enoch. It happened to Elijah. We see that modeled here with a certain collection of people that are taken up before this wrath so that it does not affect them. Then Gabriel and Uriah will become a pillar of light, leading them into the Holy Land. And I think this is the true Holy Land. It will be granted to them to eat from the tree of life. There you go, because the tree of life is not in Israel. Though this scene beforehand was taking place, I believe, in the physical earthly Jerusalem. I've shown in my research that after 70 AD, Jerusalem was rebuilt by Hadrian was one of them who rebuilt it. And we see remnants of it to this day in Jerusalem. So at this time, when this showdown was happening with Enoch and Elijah, I think it was that rebuilt Jerusalem. They will wear white garments, and angels will watch over them. They will not thirst, nor will the son of lawlessness be able to prevail over them. And on that day, the earth will be disturbed, and the sun will darken, and peace will be removed from the earth. The birds will fall on the earth, dead. The earth will be dry. The waters of the sea will dry up. The sinners will groan upon the earth, saying, what have you done to us, O son of lawlessness? Saying, I am Hamashiach, when you are the devil. You are unable to save yourself so that you might save us. Man, there's like prophecies about that there where, people are going to see Satan brought low, and, the kings of the earth are going to just be just shocked. Like, this is who we were worshiping. You produce signs in our presence until you alienated us from Hamashiach, who created us. Woe to us because we listened to you. Lo, now we will die in a famine. Where indeed is now the trace of a righteous one, and we will worship him? Or where indeed is the one who will teach us, and we will appeal to him? Now indeed we will be wrathfully destroyed because we disobeyed Yahuwah. We went to the deep places of the sea, and we did not find water. We dug in the rivers and papyrus reeds, and we did not find water. Then on that day, the shameless one will speak, saying, woe to me, because my time has passed by for me, while I was saying that my time would not pass by for me. My years became months, and my days have passed away as dust passes away. Now, therefore, I will perish together with you. Now, therefore, run forth to the desert. Seize the robbers and kill them. Bring up the saints. For because of them, the earth yields fruit. For because of them, the sun shines upon the earth. For because of them, the dew will come upon the earth. The sinners will weep, saying, you made us hostile to Yahuwah. If you are able, rise up and pursue them. Then he will take his fiery wings and fly out after the saints. He will fight with them again. The angels will hear and come down. They will fight with him a battle of many swords. It will come to pass on that day that Yahuwah will hear and command the heaven and the earth with great wrath, and they will send forth fire. And the fire will prevail over the earth 72 cubits. It will consume the sinners and the devils like stubble. A true judgment will occur. I've covered this so many times, guys. This is the fire. I call it the fire reset. This was the fire events of 536, I believe. And this is what is leading up with the sons of light versus the sons of darkness, where the final battle, it looks like Hasatan is going to win, or Beliar, and Yahuwah personally just comes down. And what we saw in, if you look at my my video that I came out with a few weeks ago, the all-consuming fire, or no, the was that what I call it, or the fire that consumes, I think it was. According to books like the Sibylline oracles and others, like everybody dies. This fire comes down and just everybody on the earth dies. On that day, the mountains and the earth will utter speech. The byways will speak with one another, saying, have you heard today the voice of a man who walks, who has not come to the judgment of the son of Yahuwah? So even the mountains are speaking to each other, saying like it's almost like, I imagine like Treebeard or something like that. But they're asking each other like, hey, have you actually seen like anybody recently that like, because it seems like everybody's been judged. Have you seen anyone just walking around? The sins of each one will stand against him in the place where they were committed, whether those of the day or of the night. Those who belong to the righteous and will see the sinners, and those who persecuted them, and those who handed them over to death in their torments. Then the sinners in torment will see the place of the righteous, and thus grace will occur. In those days, that which the righteous will ask for many times will be given to them. On that day, Yahuwah will judge the heaven and the earth. He will judge those who transgressed in heaven and those who did so on earth. He will judge the shepherds of the people. He will ask about the flock of sheep, and they will be given to him without any deadly guile existing in them. And after these things, here they are again, the men of the hour, Eliyahu and Enoch will come down. They will lay down the flesh of the world, and they will receive their spiritual flesh. Now, how many times do these guys die? Like, they've already died, I think, at least a couple times. This looks like a third time now. So they died. The Antichrist killed them maybe multiple times. They resurrect, they come back, and they lay down the flesh again. Now, there's a point to this, because when we finally get to St. George, that guy kept dying too. Like, you couldn't keep that guy down. He would be tormented and killed and resurrect, and they would kill him again. He'd be resurrected. And I'm trying to make a connection here between him and these two guys. They will pursue the son of lawlessness and kill him, since he is not able to speak. On that day, he will dissolve in their presence like ice, which was dissolved by a fire. He will perish like a serpent, which has no breath in it. They will say to him, your time has passed by for you. Now, therefore, you want those who believe you will perish. They will be cast into the bottom of the abyss, and it will be closed for them. So when it's talking about him being perished here, they give the context that he's actually thrown into the abyss. This is what happens to Satan, right? He's thrown into the abyss for 1,000 years, so he's released. But it's interesting because just like St. George, these two guys slay the dragon. That's what he does. He slays the dragon. On that day, Hamashiach, the king, and all his saints will come forth from heaven. He will burn the earth. He will spend 1,000 years upon it. There it is, Millennial Kingdom right there. Because the sinners prevailed over it, he will create a new heaven and a new earth. No deadly devil will exist in them. He will rule with his saints, ascending and descending, while they are always with the angels. And they are with Hamashiach for 1,000 years. That's the apocalypse of Elijah. Bringing us up to the present, to the short season. All right, well, throw this out there for you guys who are saying that John the Baptist or Yochanan the Baptizer was the fulfillment of Eliyahu. Obviously, given the context of these other passages I'm looking at, I don't believe that's the case. But just a few things here to go over. we see in Malachi chapter 3, it says, behold, I will send my messenger, and he shall prepare the way before me. And Yahuwah, whom ye seek, shall suddenly come to his temple, even the messenger of the covenant, whom you delight in. Behold, he shall come, saith Yahuwah of hosts. But who may abide the day of his coming, and who shall stand when he appeareth? For he is like a refiner's fire, and like fuller's soap. And he shall sit as a refiner and purifier of silver, and he shall purify the sons of Levi, and purge them as gold and silver, that he may offer unto Yahuwah an offspring in righteousness. Of course, this is Yeshua here, who was zealous, right, and he cleared the temple. Then shall the offering of Yehuda and Jerusalem be pleasant unto Yahuwah, as in the days of old, and as in former years. And I will come near to you to judgment, and I will be swift witness against the sorcerers, and against the adulterers, and against false swearers, and against those that oppress the hireling in his wages, the widow, the fatherless, and that turn aside the stranger from his right, and fear not me, saith Yahuwah of hosts. Once again, here we see Yahuwah's character. He's very opposed to those who are against the widows, the orphans, is cruel to the strangers, those who are not national born, and pressing those in their wages. Next, Malachi chapter 3. So this one here, this is Luke chapter 1. No, this is Mark chapter 1. The beginning of the gospel of Yahusha HaMashiach, the son of Allahayam. As it is written in the prophets, behold, I send my messenger before thy face, which shall prepare the way before thee. So this is referring to the prophecy in Malachi. It's saying that this is being fulfilled through Yochanan the baptizer. The voice of one crying in the wilderness, prepare ye the way of Yahuwah, make his path straight. This is John the Baptist the zealous. Is he Elijah? Is he the spirit of Elijah? I can't answer that question. Yochanan did baptize in the wilderness and preach the baptism of repentance for the remission of sins. Well, jumping ahead now to Luke, and it says, speaking once again of Yochanan the baptizer, and he shall go before him in the ruach and power of Eliyahu. So that's a direct reference right there to Phinehas, Elijah, but he has the power of Eliyahu. It doesn't straight up say he is, but he has a spirit or power of Elijah, to turn the hearts of the fathers to the children, and the disobedient to the wisdom of the just, to make ready a people prepared for Yahweh. Next passage is Matthew 11. Verily I say, well, let's just read here. And as they departed, Yahusha began to say unto the multitudes concerning Yochanan, what went ye out into the wilderness to see? A reed shaken with the wind? But what went ye out for to see? A man clothed in soft raiment? Behold, they that wear soft clothing are in kings' houses. But what went ye out for to see? Yea, I say unto you, and more than a prophet, for this is he of whom it is written, behold, I send my messenger before thy face, which shall prepare the way before me. So he's talking up here again about this prophecy in Malachi, and just skipping down, and if ye will receive it, this is Elijah Eliyahu, which was for to come. He that has ears to hear, let him hear. Matthew 11. All right. So let's jump now to Al-Khadir in the cave. The cave is a book in the Quran. And I want to make real clear out there to everyone. Yes, I have read the Quran. I was actually very disappointed in it. I was expecting more out of it. I actually thought it was a much bigger book, maybe because I'm just used to biblical literature. It was actually like, a little 300 and something page read that you can just kind of skim through in a weekend, just leisurely reading. You could sit down and get through it. But there's some really interesting parallels with the Quran and literature that we see, rabbinical literature and even Christian literature, particularly at that time in the 500s when it falls on the timeline. And one of my thoughts, my original takeaway from the Quran was that it was propaganda to pull people out of the kingdom. I think it was a rebellious effort to in the wilderness areas, in the wastelands. But I am curious if, and I showed the research as well with Rome planting Muhammad. And of course, he comes across like an MK Ultra in modern terms. I mean, he had controllers and everything like that. But I'm actually curious now if he actually was an Ebionite. And an Ebionite was, they were kind of a form of the Nazarene. They were, Ebionites traditionally, one of the things that separated them from the Nazarene is that Ebionites were traditionally anti-Paul. I think they were vegetarians. But we know that Muhammad had Ebionite relatives very close to him, and according to the official narrative. And so many people are asking, did he actually start out as a sect of Christianity, a Torah-based Ebionite? Interesting thought. And, was his writings kind of twisted and changed through the years for propaganda purposes, particularly at the end of the Millennial Kingdom? And we don't have a Quran that's that old, which is really shocking, considering the fact that the Bible is much older and we have a lot older documents of the Bible. Like they're just, the Quran is only 1,400 years old or something like that, but we don't even have copies from like more than 400 or 500 years ago or something like that. It's pretty shocking. But anyways, let's actually read from the Quran. This is, again, a section from the Cave. The Cave is a fascinating book because there are multiple parallels in there to Christian literature and other things like that. And they found a servant, Al-Khadir. Now, I will point out that in the actual Quran, it never gives his name. He's called the servant. But it is universally accepted by Islam that this is referring to this mystery prophet named Al-Khadir. And they found a servant, Al-Khadir, from among our servants to whom we had given mercy from us and had taught him from us a certain knowledge. And Moses said to him, "May I follow you on the condition that you teach me from what you have been taught of sound judgment?" He, or Al-Khadir, said to Moses, "Indeed, with me you will never be able to have patience. And how can you have patience for what you do not encompass in knowledge?" By the way, how is it that if I am suggesting that Al-Khadir is Elijah, how could he possibly be a contemporary of Moses? Well, we know Phinehas was, even though he was a grandson of Aaron. One of the interesting things about Al-Khadir is that in the discussions I was finding with modern Islam is that there are a lot of suggestions that he is what we would call a time traveler, meaning that Al-Khadir would just show up at different points in history, out of order. Well, that's something that Elijah apparently does too. He kind of jumps around. So he said, "Indeed, with me you will never be able to have patience. And how can you have patience for what you do not encompass in knowledge?" Moses said, "You will find me, if Allah wills, patient, and I will not disobey you in any order." So Moses really wants to learn from this guy. And he's saying, okay, Al-Khadir is saying, "Okay, Moses, you want to come and learn from me? Here's the condition. You can't question anything I do. I'm going to do some stuff you're going to find really morally shady. You're going to have a lot of questions that you cannot question. You just have to accept it and just observe." And he says, "I will not disobey you in any order." And he said, "Then if you follow me, do not ask me about anything until I make to you about it mention." So they set out until when they had embarked on the ship, Al-Khadir tore it open. And Moses said, "Have you torn it open to drown its people? You have certainly done a grave thing." And Al-Khadir said, "Did I not say that with me you would never be able to have patience?" And Moses said, "Do not blame me for what I forgot, and do not cover me in my matter with difficulty." So they set out. So, Moses is really upset that Al-Khadir takes out this whole ship and maybe these people die, right? So they set out until when they met a boy. Al-Khadir killed him, the boy. And Moses said, "Have you killed a pure soul for other than having killed a soul? You have certainly done a deplorable thing." And Al-Khadir said, "Did I not tell you that with me you would never be able to have patience?" And Moses said, "If I should ask you about anything after this, then do not keep me as a companion. You have obtained from me an excuse." So they set out until when they came to the people of a town, and they asked its people for food, but they refused to offer them hospitality, and they found they were in a wall about to collapse. So Al-Khadir restored it. And Moses said, "If you wish, you could have taken it for payment." And Al-Khadir said, This is parting between me and you. I will inform you of the interpretation of that about which you could not have patience. As for the ship, it belonged to poor people working at sea. So I intended to cause defect in it, as there was after them a king who seized every good ship by force. And as for the boy, his parents were believers, and we feared that he would overburden them by transgression and disbelief. So we intended that their Lord should substitute for them one better than him in purity and nearer to mercy. And as for the wall, it belonged to 2 orphan boys in the city, and there was beneath it a treasure for them. And their father had been righteous. So your Lord intended that they reach maturity and extract their treasure as a mercy from your Lord. And I did it not for my own accord. That is the interpretation of that about which you cannot have patience. So according to this Al-Khadir, he has this this all wise, all knowledge, beyond human understanding. And he's going about doing things in history that as they unfold in history, as he is a direct agent getting involved in human behavior, humans are just appalled by this. This cannot be good. This cannot be righteous. I don't understand this. This can't be holy. And he's like, you don't see the big picture here. You don't see why we are, why I'm moving into history, manipulating these events for the good of the kingdom, for righteousness. So again, this is the Quran's perspective, right? But we are now going to look, we'll look at Elijah here real soon. Let's look at the synchronization of Al-Khadir. There's a few notes here I want you to look at over. Al-Khadir is a figure, he's never mentioned by name in the Quran. I mentioned that. He is described in Surah Al-Kahf as a righteous servant of God, possessing great wisdom or mystic knowledge. And in various Islamic and non-Islamic traditions, Khadir is described as an angel, a prophet, or wali who guards the sea. He teaches secrets, knowledge, and aids those in distress. He prominently figures as patron of the Islamic saints Ibn Arabi. The figure of Al-Khadir has been synchronized over time with various other figures, including Dira Osa and Soroush in Iran, Sargis the general, and St. George in Asia Minor. Of course, we'll be making the St. George connection. And the Samael, the divine persecutor in Judaism. So this is kind of interesting that rabbinical Judaism say, well, their Al-Khadir is actually Hasatan. He's actually Samael going around as this angel of light, but he's actually a divine. He's the prosecutor, right? He is Satan. He's known as Elijah among the Druze, John the Baptist in Armenia. Well, that's kind of interesting. So right there, the Armenians are also making the Elijah connection and saying that John the Baptist continues to wander the earth. So, okay. Now, this is an interesting little tidbit here. Al-Khadir means the green one. He is actually called the green man. You guys remember my presentation I gave on the green man, right? It means the green one in Arabic, and the Arabic root conveys everything to do with greenery, green pastures, verdure, and vegetation. The color green was supposedly the Prophet Muhammad's favorite color. As a side note, I actually am of the opinion that green is God's color. Al-Khidr is one from the Arabic root, which means paradise. So he has in his name the idea of the green man, but also paradise. And of course, as I mentioned, he's often blended with Elijah. He's also often blended with St. George, the patron saint of England, of the Lebanese, Palestinian, and Syrian Christians. So where does this tradition come from? That you have, on one hand, in all this controlled opposition, you have Islam saying they have this Al-Khadir figure, but then you have the Armenians, who I think had a huge part in the Millennial Kingdom, the Syrians, Palestinian, Lebanese, all these Christian groups saying, no, he's actually Elijah. We believe he existed, but he's actually Elijah, and he actually wanders the earth. And like, that's weird in post-Newtonian, like really, like Elijah just walks around on the earth, but that's what they were saying back then. The name George comes from the Greek word Georgios, which means farmer. And Georgios is a combination of the Greek word ge, meaning earth, soil, and ergon, meaning work. So a worker of the earth and soil. And does that tie in with the green man, the greening one, right? So we get it's kind of, I'll be talking next week on the matrix and simulation. And there's an interesting passage that I dug up that I will be talking about that time, that the harvest itself in the simulation theory shows that the order of the universe, that if it was left to our own devices, everything would be in chaos and disorder, right? So this idea of vegetation and greening is showing on earth as it is in heaven type of approach, that you have an individual who is going around and actually bringing order. But it's funny because with Al-Khadir, it looks like disorder, right? The guy's going around and he looks like he's just a wrecking ball of society. And actually it's all for the benefit of Allah. Anyways, if Al-Khadir means the green one and indicates vegetation, and George means farmer, there is the green man, maybe, that was weird. I butchered that sentence there, but there is your green man connection right there. The planting and harvest cycle and mysteries may be at play. All right. So this is a picture here of Al-Khadir and the prophet Elijah. They are depicted praying together in an illuminated manuscript version of stories of the prophets. I think this is probably Islamic. Yeah, the two of them. So one of these two guys is Al-Khadir and one of them is Elijah. I'm not really sure who. I'm trusting that the commentary on this illustration is correct. So Elijah and Al-Khadir share the same story. This comes from Legends of the Jews, chapter 4. I hope you will remember what was said in the cave. Elijah visits Rabbi Joshua ben Levi. So compare this with the cave. Hold on, I need another drink of coffee. We're only at page 38 of a 75-page document. I might be repeating this next week. This is like, wow. I have so much to get to. I should say finishing this next week. Among the many and various teachings dispensed by Elijah to his friends, there were none so important as his theodicy, the teachings vindicating God's justice in the administration of earthly affairs. He used many an opportunity to demonstrate it by precept and example. Once he granted his friend Rabbi Joshua ben Levi the fulfillment of any wish he might express, and all the rabbi asked for was that he might be permitted to accompany Elijah on his wanderings through the world. So according to Jewish literature, they're saying that it wasn't Moses who went with Elijah. It was Rabbi Joshua ben Levi. But you're going to see that this is the same story as the Quran with Moses and Al-Khadir. Elijah was prepared to gratify this wish. He only imposed the condition that however odd the rabbi might think Elijah's actions, he was not to ask any explanation of them. If ever he demanded why, they would have to part company. So Elijah and the rabbi fared forth together, and they journeyed on until they reached the house of a poor man, whose only earthly possession was a cow. The man and his wife were thoroughly good-hearted people, and they received the two wanderers with a cordial welcome. They invited the strangers into their house, set before them food and drink of the best they had, and made up a comfortable couch for them for the night. When Elijah and the rabbi were ready to continue their journey on the following day, Elijah prayed that the cow belonging to his host might die. Before they left the house, the animal had expired. Rabbi Joshua was so shocked by the misfortune that had befallen the good people, he almost lost consciousness. He thought, is that to be the poor man's reward for all his kind service to us? And he could not refrain from putting the question to Elijah. But Elijah reminded him of the condition imposed and accepted at the beginning of their journey, and they traveled on, the rabbi's curiosity unappeased. That night they reached the house of a wealthy man who did not pay his guests the courtesy of looking them in the face. Though they passed the night under his roof, he did not offer them food or drink. This rich man was desirous of having a wall repaired that had tumbled down. There was no need for him to take any steps to have it rebuilt, for when Elijah left the house, he prayed that the wall might erect itself, and lo, it stood upright. Rabbi Joshua was greatly amazed, but true to his promise, he suppressed the question that rose to his lips. So the two traveled on again until they reached an ornate synagogue. the seats in which were made of silver and gold. But the worshipers did not correspond in character to the magnificence of the building. For when it came to the point of satisfying the needs of the way-worn pilgrims, one of those present said, "There is not dearth of water and bread, and the strange travelers cannot stay in the synagogue, whether these refreshments can be brought to them." Early the next morning, when they were departing, Elijah wished those present in the synagogue in which they had lodged that God might raise them all to be heads. Rabbi Joshua again had to exercise great self-restraint and not put into words the question that troubled him profoundly. In the next town, they were received with great affability and served abundantly with all their tired bodies craved. On these kind hosts, Elijah, on leaving, bestowed the wish that God might give them but a single head. Now, the rabbi could not hold himself in check any longer, and he demanded an explanation of Elijah's freakish actions. Elijah consented to clear up his conduct for Joshua, but before they separated from each other, he spoke as follows: "The poor man's cow was killed because I knew that on the same day the death of his wife had been ordained in heaven, and I prayed to God to accept the loss of the poor man's property as a substitute for the poor man's wife. As for the rich man, there was a treasure hidden under the dilapidated wall, and if he had rebuilt it, he would have found the gold. Hence I set up the wall miraculously in order to deprive of the valuable find. I wish that the inhospitable people assembled in the synagogue might have many heads, for a place of numerous leaders is bound to be ruined by reason of multiplicity of counsel and disputes. To the inhabitants of our last sojourning place, on the other hand, I wished a single head, for the one to guide a town, successful attend all its undertakings. Now, then, that if thou seest an evildoer prosper, it is not always unto his advantage. And if a righteous man suffers need and distress, think not God is unjust." After these words, Elijah and Rabbi Joshua separated from each other, and each went his own way. So the lesson there as to what Elijah is doing when he's going about the word, or Al-Khidr, is that it is in this last line here. "Know then that if thou sees an evildoer prosper, it is actually not unto his advantage as you might think. Because God's ways, or Allahim's ways, are not our ways. And if a righteous man suffers need and distress, think not Allahim is unjust." So the lesson here is that when we see events unfold in the world, there are actually agents. I covered this in my Guardian Angels talk. There are agents of Allahim, of God, on this earth going about and interceding in human affairs to make them happen. We saw this in Jasher, when there was an angel in the court when Moses was a child who convinced Pharaoh to do one thing or another. And we look at this and we go, this is not just, this isn't the way it's supposed to be, but we don't have the full picture as to how all of this is going to unfold and come together. Okay, well, let's finish this. How difficult it is to form a true judgment with nothing but external appearances as a guide. That is so true. Elijah proved to Rabbi Baroka. They were once walking in a crowded street, and the rabbi requested Elijah to point out any in the throng destined to occupy places in paradise. Elijah answered that there was none, only to contradict himself and point to a passerby the very next minute. His appearance was such that in him, least of all, the rabbi would have suspected a pious man. His garb did not even indicate that he was a Jew. Later, Rabbi Baroka discovered by questioning him that he was a prison guard. In the fulfillment of his duties as such, he was particularly careful that the virtue of chastity should not be violated in the prison in which both men and women were kept in detention. Also, his position often brought him into relations with the heathen authorities, and so he was enabled to keep the Jews informed of the disposition entertained toward them by the powers that be. The rabbi was thus taught that no station in life precluded its occupant from doing good and acting nobly. I fully agree with that statement there. That interesting here, like Elijah can't find anybody on the streets who is righteous. I mean, this comes straight out of Proverbs, with wisdom going about, and nobody is, looking for wisdom. And he finds this prison guard, and he's like, this guy he's doing such good work, and he's He's holding human decency and, keeping women in this prison, letting them have their decency, right, from the men. And this guy is going to inherit paradise. It's kind of interesting. All right. Now, let's get back to Al-Khadir again. So hopefully you saw some of the similarities there. I mean, like the story of the wall and this kind of stuff. It's total connections with the Quran. Well, Al-Khadir, Alexander, and the Fountain of Life. What is this quoting from? This is another long passage from, I'm not really sure. Okay. In spite of the scorn and disbelief evinced by modern educated Muslims, the great majority of Islamic believers have long accorded the utmost respect toward this mysterious figure, whom theologians variously class as a saint, a prophet, or even as an angel. Elusive yet omnipresent, Al-Khadir has long been said to reveal himself to those who are worthy of his companionship, to whom he transmits the seer or divine secrets. Even today, face-to-face encounters with Khwaja Khadir are not uncommon among Islamic mystics in Sri Lanka and worldwide. By assembling a composite picture of Al-Khadir as he is portrayed in the Holy Quran, in Purian literature and pre-Islamic legendary sources, a possible basis for Kataragama's long association with the ever-youthful servant of Allah emerges. Intriguing patterns come to light that relate Al-Khadir to Iskander or Alexander the Great, who may represent the historical archetype from which evolved into the pan-Indian cult of the war god Skanda. I'm actually reading from an article here. A historian is talking about this, and I'll be, I think, talking a little bit about Alexander the Great, where he comes into this. And this is one of the reasons why Al-Khadir is kind of thought to be like a time traveler. And, Elijah is as well. So another connection there. Popular tradition concerning Al-Khadir also finds ample support among learned scholars. Some say that he lived at the time of the biblical prophet Abraham, and that he still may be seen at sacred places. Now, the interesting thing about this prophet is that, according to the Colburn Bible, which I quote from often, in the Book of Gleanings, it talks about a prophet named Herminator. And Herminator was a contemporary of Abraham, or he may have been Abraham. And there's quite a few places in the Colburn where it talks about how they actually, because all throughout the Colburn, it's very anti-idolatry. They hate idols. They say that, that the creator, the Father Spirit, cannot be contained in any given idol, so why do it? And that all these teachings come from Herminator. And that was Abraham's message too. So it is really interesting that we're seeing, again, this prophet character that now even predates Phinehas. According to, let's see, okay, so according to, I don't know, several quotes, Khazir lives on an island. He and the biblical prophet Elijah perform Hajj annually. So this is one of the things I find interesting, how we see he and Elijah in the same picture together, in the same room together. Is he actually Enoch? Right? So far, I've been making the Elijah connection, but actually, are we looking at Enoch? Enoch and Elijah wandering the earth together. Both are entrusted with the duty of protecting travelers on their journeys. Al-Khadir's realm is an earthly paradise. I find this really fascinating. Within the human world, where Khadir rules over saints and angels, known as Yah, also name of the sun. It is situated in the far north. Guys, this is the hidden wilderness. How long have I been telling you guys there's this huge swath of land up in the north, in the far extreme north, beyond the circle of the sun and the moon, that is a physical place where paradise is. There's an earthly paradise there with a light that is Mashiach. So it is interesting. And of course, that Islam believed the same thing. They believed paradise was on the earth. And I believe it was written in the Millennial Kingdom. And they all knew, I think everyone knew back then, where the hidden wilderness was, that only the righteous were going there. It was, the mortals weren't going there, so they could only hear about it. All right, so according to early Islamic historians, Khazir was the vizier of the two-horned, who was generally considered to be identical with Alexander the Great of Macedonia. So in Islamic tradition, there's this Al-Sikandar or Iskandar is recalled as a saintly leader or prophet whose armies conquered both east and west. So this Iskandar, this two-horned one, is thought to be Alexander the Great. So the Islamic historians talk about this man who conquered the world, right? And he went all the way east, and together with Khidr, who was variously portrayed as a cook, a vizier, or a general leading the vanguard of his troops, Alexander is represented as having set out to reach the end of the world or the land of darkness in search of the water of life. The way it ends is that Alexander the Great followed his own path. Of course, he wasn't a righteous man by any means, and with a sense of personal accomplishment or authorship. In this sense, Iskandar failed in the Grail quest because he was, as it were, seeking to set himself up as a divinity, a purely hypothetical partner to Allah. And of course, that explains Alexander the Great pretty well. Nevertheless, Al-Khadir, according to the story, was able to go to the find the waters of life. Okay, I'm going to just, for lack of time, I'm going to skip some of this. All right, well, let's start breaking into St. George here, because I think I've talked enough about Al-Khadir, and I really could have gone on and on and on about him. But where it really starts getting intriguing is that we have some monasteries that are dedicated to both Al-Khadir and St. George, the idea being that they're the same person. So there's Deir al-Bala, which in Arabic translates as the monastery of the date palm. And here's a picture here of somebody took like right next to the monastery. It was named after the grove of date palms that lay west of the city. Its name dates back to the late 19th century, before which the city was locally known as Deir Mar Jeris or Deir al-Khadir in Ottoman records. So interesting enough, Mar Jeris translates as St. George. While in Islamic tradition, Al-Khadir could either refer to St. George or Elijah. The inhabitants of Deir al-Bala associated Al-Khadir with St. George. The town had been named after Al-Khadir, the most venerated saintly person throughout Palestine. So if I didn't mention this very interesting monastery is in Palestine, modern day Palestine territory. The mosque in Deir al-Bala, which bears his name, is traditionally believed by locals to contain his tomb. All right, so it became known as Al-Khidr Shrine, but some historical accounts attribute the monument to St. George, who is one of the Christian saints depicted by Christianity as the man who fights evil, which means Al-Khidr in Arabic. So so I think this is pieces of what remains of this very old shrine / mosque / Christian church, or whatever this was originally. It is considered one of the oldest historical buildings in the Palestinian city of Deir al-Bala. It was built in the Byzantine era. So we're talking Millennial Kingdom era when this was erected originally. And of course, it's destroyed now. And this is like a restored portion of it. They made it into a library. It's an Islamic library. But it gets even more interesting than that. So we do have this was a major pilgrimage site where they were going to celebrate St. George / Al-Khadir. All right. And of course, again, we see the Elijah connection. So the Dome of Al-Khadir, AKA the Dome of St. George. And guess where this is, guys? This is the Temple Mount in Jerusalem. And this here, it's 1, 2, 3. Is this... what is this? Is this octagonal or what is this? Let's find out. The Dome of Al-Khadir, I'm pulling this from Wikipedia, or the Dome of St. George, because nobody can apparently decide, is a small dome building located in the southwest corner of the Temple Mount. It is dedicated to Khadir, who is associated with St. George in local tradition. Apparently, it was erected on the spot, they tell us, where Khadir stopped to pray to Allah. And you can see there the Dome of the Rock, with this shrine right here to St. George. Now, the fascinating thing about this, there was a video that the Fig Tree Generation, they came on with me and interviewed. We had a discussion about the Temple Mount. Now, I have stated repeatedly that I am not convinced that the Temple Mount is the historical Temple Mount, meaning I do believe Jerusalem is in the historical Jerusalem. I'm not into the theory that Israel is in America or Africa or, England or Spain. I've seen all the different proposed locations. I believe it is where they tell us it is for a lot of reasons. There's just overwhelming evidence of that, as well as Rome and all the other places. That being said, Josephus tells us that the very foundation of the temple was destroyed in 70 AD. Nothing remained except one foundation, which was Fort Antonia. And you can go there to this day and you can see Fort Antonia still exists, where they show the Dome of the Rock. The temple would have been on Mount Zion, not on Fort Antonia. So what's interesting about the Dome of the Rock is that there is no other building like this in all of Islamic literature. Now, they've given it a bit of a facelift and they've made it a kind of Islamic looking, but this building, octagonal building, is very, very unique. And this, I'm kind of in the camp now that this could have been a building that was constructed for some sort of temple use, not as the temple, but it could have been a Millennial Kingdom type of temple. I think it's very interesting the way it's set up with the sun and the moon, the east and the west, where it's all at. So interesting to see that little, this was probably not just a hollow shell cake topper they put here. This would have had some sort of use, probably had a little engine in there or something like that, that connected with this dome. There's another picture of it there. All right, so let's talk about the story of St. George and the dragon. And I'm going to end tonight by actually reading from passages of the martyrdom of St. George. There was once a great city that depended for its water supply upon a fountain without the walls, and a great dragon, possessed and moved by Satan himself, took possession of the fountain, refused to allow water to be taken unless, whenever people came to the spring, a youth or a maiden was given to him to devour. So in all these paintings you see of St. George and the dragon, he's not just slaying like a random dragon, all right? He's literally slaying Hasatan. And what does that remind us of? And of course, we see here the lance that he has to spear the dragon, just like Phinehas had. He's St. George the Zealous. So every time you see the maiden here, he's actually riding in to stop her from being eaten by Hasatan. The people tried again and again to destroy the monster, but though the flower of the city cheerfully went forth against it, its breath was so pestilent that they used to drop down dead before they came within bowshot. Anyways, so his name was Margiris, St. George, Margiris. So anyways, you guys know the story. He's about to devour a woman. Margiris rides in just like Phinehas. He takes his lance, he spears the dragon, and he saves the lady. Let's see. Here's another story of Elijah. The modern Jewish inhabitants of Palestine devoutly believe in Elijah's intervention in times of difficulty. Thus, among the Spanish Jewish population, or within the synagogues of Jerusalem, there is shown a little subterranean chamber called the synagogue. Okay, you know what? I'm actually skipping this, guys, for lack of time. I don't need to read that. You guys get the idea that they believe that Elijah is an agent who shows up throughout history to work in the favor of God, of Allah Hayam. All right, this is what's really interesting here. So the actual ensign or the flag or the shield of St. George is none other than the Tav. It is a red cross against a white background. So here you see all the pictures of St. George or Knights of St. George. Here's another one right here in a medieval illumination. Even the horse is decorated in the Tav. St. George, St. George, St. George. Here he is with his lance, his spear, just like Phinehas. Of course, the Tav is Yehovah's signature. It's his mark. And here he's slaying the dragon with the mark, the ensign. And this is the St. George cross. It looks very close to the Templars, doesn't it? In fact, there is a connection to be made with the Templars and St. George. And if you need a refresher, one of my theories of the Templars was that they were actually a righteous people. They were thrown into a kangaroo court. They were war propaganda, just like we see with, a certain German who was a victim of a lot of propaganda. Same thing. And as they went up north to paradise to return to their land at the end of the Millennial Kingdom, they were hunted down. The controlled opposition came in. The Freemasons today claim they come from the Templars. Fine, no big deal to me. Fine, they're the controllers, right? They're the inheritors. I guess they're free to claim their inheritance. We see these flags of St. George all over the world. Insanely popular. Of course, he's the saints of England, and I want to show you this here. So, with the United Kingdom flag, we see that they take the cross of St. George, they mix it with the cross of St. Andrew, and the cross of St. Patrick. How badass is that? Like, you will never look at the British flag the same way again. And they combine them all into this amazing, amazing picture. And how is it that St. George is the patron saint of England? Now, the historians can't even work this out. The reason being he was scrubbed, right? They're just left with the residue, and they have to come up with the story. They're like, well, the Crusaders went to the Middle East, and they'd never heard of him before. And so they came back with their stories, and these stories escalated until it actually became the flag of Britain, and just these things that just don't, it's like, really, that's the best you've got. Doesn't really make sense. The same thing with the Green Man. They claim that, the connection with Al-Khadir, they went to Palestine, whatever, and they discovered the Green Man there and brought him back to, and built all the cathedrals based on the Green Man. Here's another place. This is an actual place you can go visit. It's in Beirut, Lebanon, and they claim that this is the actual location where St. George actually slayed the dragon, that this dragon lived in this cave, kind of like the Hobbit, with like Smog the dragon, and he went there and he slayed it. He saved the lady. There's also this place called the burial site of St. George in where is this at? In Lydda. It's actually in Syria. You can read about that. I don't really care to spend too much time on that, but I don't care to spend too much time on that. All right, let's look at the selections from the martyrdom of St. George. And there's a reason for this. You're going to see that it fits into the timeline. Now, in times of old, there arose a severe and terrible storm, and a great and mighty storm, and persecution came upon the church. Actually, you're going to see that this connects pretty well with the apocalypse of Elijah, which I read you earlier tonight. There's a reason I read it to you. In all places, the governors had gone astray, and they dragged the preachers of the truth to the altars of the idols and compelled them all to offer sacrifices to devilish idols. Now, remember according to the apocalypse of Elijah, there was a lot of people who couldn't handle it, right? And they would flee, and those who stayed behind were tortured, or you had to give in. Thus also did the governor Dadianus, who had acquired dominion and had obtained the rule over the 4 quarters of the earth. So it's telling you that there's this king at the time of St. George. He ruled the entire earth. When Dadianus had become chief, he sat upon the tribune and wrote edicts to be proclaimed throughout the whole world. And these are the things that were written in them. Inasmuch as a rumor has come to my ears that he to whom Mary gave birth is the God who is alone to be worshipped, and that Apollo and Poseidon and Hermes and Astarte and Zeus and Isabel and Uranus and Scamandros and the other gods are not to be worshipped at all, but that Jesus Christus, whom the Jews slew, is to be worshipped. I therefore write to every place and to the governors of every land and to all rulers under the authority of my government to come to me speedily, that they may know the decision of my power. Now, the next line is like, what? Like, in this kingdom verse, right? If you take all the things I've been showing you, and I don't have the time to show all the things I've been showing you, but if you have been following, pay attention to this. The 70 governors from all parts of the world were gathered together there with so great and mighty a multitude that the land could not contain them for their number. Now I have stated that these 70 Elohim were judged in the 500s. That when the sons of light went up against the armies of Belial, Melchizedek, the priest led them, and of course Elijah is a Melchizedek. That at that time the Elohim were judged and thrown into the abyss or destroyed with Hasatan. So it is no coincidence here that we see this Antichrist figure rules the world at the time of St. George. And of course, you'll see that he is embodied by Hasatan. He is the serpent, that there are 70 governors here in a confederacy with him. Now we have the 200 of the United Nations, which are, of course, aligned with the Watchers. Let's see. Now, there was a young man whose name was George. Okay, so basically he says, he says here, he swore an oath saying, if I find any people of doubtful mind and refusing to worship the gods, I will reverse the commands of my fathers and will torture them with bitter sufferings. I will break in the lowers of their hearts. I will smash their heads. I will cut out their brains with sharp knives. I will saw off their shin bones. I will tear open their bodies, and I will cut off their limbs from their bodies. This is not a read for the faint of heart. There's obviously a connection to all these gods that need to be worshipped and the 70. You see what I'm saying? When the multitude heard these things, they feared the tortures greatly. And those who wished to become martyrs refrained when they considered the numbers of tortures which they ran the risk of suffering. And 3 whole years went by without anyone declaring to say, I am a Christian. Now there was a young man whose name was George, the son of truth and the glorious star betwixt heaven and earth. Well, that's an interesting description of him. He was a tribune in the imperial army and came from Cappadocia. So he was, according to this, he was a soldier under the charge of this Antichrist at first. And when he had served his time as tribune and acquired much wealth, he came to the governor, Dadianus, and wished to be made a count by him. When St. George had come to the city and saw the frenzied idolatry of the governors and that they had forsaken God, he straightway decided to give up his rank of tribune, saying, I will become soldier of my Lord, Jesus Christus, the King of heaven. So he's got the same zealousness. And then we see here, it straight up says, the dragon looked at him. This is the Antichrist. St. George answered and said, okay, so the governor said to him, this is the Antichrist, he says to him, I desire thee to worship Apollo, who hung out the heavens, and Poseidon, who made fast the earth. And St. George answered and said, neither for thy sake, O evil dragon, nor for that of the governors, thy companions, will I speak about the righteous ones and thy dead God, but for the sake of these multitudes here present. Whom wouldst thou compel me to worship, O king? Peter, the chosen one of the apostles? That's kind of interesting. You see a lot of emphasis, very little emphasis. I will point this out. You see very little emphasis on Paul in the medieval literature. Paul was like the boy that was chosen for the Reformation. So he's saying, Peter, chosen one of the apostles, or Apollo, who corrupts the whole world? To which of these would you have me offer sacrifice? To Elijah, the Tishbite, who was an angel upon earth, and who walked upon earth and was taken up to the gates of heaven? Or to Scamandros, the sorcerer, who worked enchantments by fire and who led many people astray, who committed adultery with Temisia or Demeter, who begat Saar and Sarphats, and so on and so forth. That's the martyrdom of St. George. So it's kind of interesting here that as he's confronting the evil dragon that eventually he's going to slay after he's killed over and over and over again, and the dragon can't seem to kill him enough, he actually talked. It's kind of interesting connection there with Elijah, the Tishbite. And it actually says he was an angel in this passage. He was an angel. So He was not Elijah, according to this, was not a mortal. And the dragon of the abyss commanded them to throw his bones outside the city into a dry pit. This is after they kill St. George, saying within himself, lest the Christians find a bone of his and build a martyrium over it and bring up his blood against us. Anyways, St. George comes back. He's resurrected. And he says, and he confronts him and he says, I am George whom ye slew yesterday, because ye despise my God who could destroy you in a moment. Jumping forward, we see, what does it say? When the Spirit heard these, now this book, by the way, guys, is like hundreds of pages. All right. So I have scoured this for certain passages, and it's been a book I've been editing for like 2 years. I need to finish it. I need to commit to finishing this and getting this out for you guys. When the Spirit heard these things from him, he was speechless and found not a word to say. And straightway St. George smote the earth with his foot and opened its mouth, and it opened its mouth. And he said to the idol, go down now into the abyss, O unclean spirit. So he's having a confrontation with the gods of the earth, and give speech to all the souls that thou have destroyed. And the unclean spirit went down straightway into the abyss together with the idol in which he dwelt. It's really interesting there that it is giving it's showing the reality behind idols, that they do have unclean spirits that possess them. And St. George smote the earth with his foot, and it closed up as it was before. After these things, St. George unloosened his shoe latchets and went to the idols of Heracles, or Hercules, and pulled him down upon the ground and broke him in pieces. And he said to the other idols, go down into the abyss, O gods of the heathen, for I have come against you in anger and in wrath. So this is truly a zealous guy going around, just like Abraham, anti-idols. He's going and destroying all the idols, which again, I think that was what was going on at the beginning of the Millennial Kingdom. They were going around destroying everything. When the priests and the ministers and the attendants who waited upon the idols saw the destruction of their gods, they laid hold of St. George and tied his hands behind him and took him to the governor and showed him everything that had happened to the gods and to Apollo, saying, he has been thrown down into the abyss. All right, this is a longer passage, but it is well worth reading. Wow, this is actually quite long. Let's see if I can hit the highlighted sections. Then the governor, Dadianus, sat down and wrote the death sentence of the blessed man George, saying, George, the chief of the Galileans. What does that mean? I actually don't know. The chief of the Galileans has set behind his back the decrees of the 70 governors of the whole world, the ministers of the victorious gods. So again, each of these 70 governors are representative of these different gods over the earth. And the 70 governors who are representative of these 70 gods who he's going around destroying signed the sentence of his death. All right, so then we see that he was tortured for 7 years. That's kind of interesting. And while they are rejoicing at his death, the blessed man, George, looked up to heaven and said, O my Lord Jesus Christos, who did make fire come from heaven by the words of thy servant Elijah the prophet. We keep seeing connections to Elijah with this guy. And devour the 2 captains of 50 and their 100 soldiers. Send down to me, O my God, of that same fire, that it may devour these 70 lawless governors. And while the words were yet in his mouth, fire came forth from heaven and devoured the 70 lawless governors who held their cups of wine untasted in their hands. Boom, gone. The 70. Judgment came by the prayer of St. George. And when he had said amen, the whole firmament was filled with the angels of the highest. This is a 541 territory right here, 536, 541 territory. And our Lord Jesus Christos came to him, seated upon the cherubim and seraphim, and the company of the prophets and the apostles, and the martyrs, and all the saints, and all the hosts of heaven were praising him. So at the time when St. George slayed the dragon, guys, this is when the firmament is opened up and the saints with Yahushua HaMashiach come down to the earth. Incredible. All right, let's see here. What does that say? All right. Let's see. And I say unto thee, O my beloved, that inasmuch as among all mankind and in the whole world there was for 3 years no one able to confess my name, either elder nor deacon nor lay person, except thyself alone, and thou didst stand up before the 70 governors of the whole world, I swear by my right hand, O my beloved one, that I will. This is, by the way, this is, I need to check. I think this is Yahushua HaMashiach speaking. I think. Yeah. It could be Yahuwah, but I think it's the same guy, but same person. O my beloved one, I will establish a covenant with thee, that when thou shalt bow thyself upon thy spiritual face in heaven, and shalt come with all the congregation to worship the Holy Trinity, all the saints shall know thee by reason of the honor which I will show thee. O my beloved, and they all shall know that thou art George, the beloved of God, and shall adore thee according to the command of my good Father. Okay, he's compared here to John the Baptist. And he says here again, this is still Yahushua speaking. He says, for thy sake, George, I have destroyed the lawless governors of the whole world. When thy blood has been poured out upon the ground, the service of the idol shall cease, and men shall glorify my name throughout the whole world. So and then get this right here. And after a short time, Satan will stir up a persecution against the churches, and the blood of thousands of martyrs throughout the whole world shall be shed. All right. I guess I'll read this last passage here. So then the narrative talks about, it says, and one of our fathers, a bishop, was taken up to heaven in a vision, and he saw most exalted mysteries, the which it is not lawful for an earthly being to utter. And he said, I saw that I was standing before the throne of the Father, and I saw thousands of thousands and myriads praising the Holy Trinity, and coming in bands, and they worshiped God and glorified him and blessed him and made their request. And afterwards they stood in rows, and no earthly creature could describe the glory and the great honor which they had received from the Trinity. I have told you guys in the past that I'm not as threatened anymore by this word Trinity as I used to be. That I think that the modern theology has turned this into something that it is not. And I am of the opinion that the oldest references to the Trinity is referring to the unity of the Holy Family, the Father, the Mother, and the Son. And I saw one coming forth from within the veil, like unto a king, wearing a diadem of gold with 7 crowns upon it. And he was riding upon a white horse, and he was many times brighter than the sun, and was equipped with sword and armor and the apparel of a king. And he finds out that this is St. George, the beloved of God, the chosen martyr, exalted above all the saints, according to the words of our Savior. And basically, this guy is brought into the holy city, and he sees him there. So, yeah, it's kind of a strange story that if St. George is some random guy, that he was just chosen at the initiation, appears apparently of the kingdom. He was just chosen as the greatest saint of all time, that, you know, he would be praised into eternity. But again, if you make the Elijah connection, or maybe he's Enoch, I don't know. Maybe he's one of the two. He's compared to them, no doubt. It makes a lot of sense that this was perhaps an agent that came and went throughout history and may to this day be coming around. So just some shots here of St. George slaying the dragon. And this, again, this is, as far as I'm concerned, this is all a reference to the initiation of the millennial kingdom, the physical manifestation of the kingdom on the earth, that this mystery man, St. George, was there to play the part of Phinehas with his lance to slay the dragon, to be zealous for the law of Yahuwah and bring it about. Let's see, wait, I'm trying to find, I mean, these are just random pictures I found from all over. Really beautiful. And, oh, this one here on the bottom right, I actually saw this one about a couple months ago in the Smithsonian. You can find that one there. The head of the lady did not survive, and the arm of, you could see like part of his hand is missing, and he held something there that is now gone, but you can see the lance slaying the dragon down there. And here's some more shots here. All right. And I want to close on this right here, just comparing the picture of St. George slaying the dragon here with the lance. And then you come down here to Phinehas, and of course here the two lovers, he spears through both of them. And this one here in the tabernacle, I don't know. I'll let you guys decide on what you think. Do you think that Phinehas is Elijah? I think they are. But is Elijah Al-Khadir, and is he St. George? Or alternatively, is Al-Khadir Enoch, and is St. George Enoch? Again, that's where you guys decide. I hope you guys enjoyed this tonight. I hope this was informational. I mean, educational, not just entertainment. Probably not very entertaining, but hopefully it was educational. And we'll do this again next week. Be hitting up another subject. Love you guys. Have a good Sabbath rest. See if I can even turn this thing off. You guys might be stuck with me until I can turn this off. Here we go. Good night, everybody.